Good late evening, peoples. All right, I wanted to do something on Kurv. It's been a while since I've done anything on the Kurv funds, but as you guys know, I interviewed a while back Howard Chan. And the immediate thing, I did a comparison, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and I compared Kurv to Yield-Max before Yield-Max was doing any spreads. And for those of you that don't know, Kurv uses a company the way that Yield-Max uses J and Zega. They use a company called Neos, and they do their options for them. So Howard is a very bright guy, came from fixed income, has a great background, the CEO, and they're a little, I would call them more conservative. So they're going to keep your NAV. They're not going to have the outrageous yields. You don't yet see any crypto in theirs. I had asked him about that some time ago, and he said, well, they don't rule it out completely. And I would think now with all the ETF funds and everything, I wouldn't be surprised if you see something in that regards in the future. Um, but what I wanted to do here was just show you the latest. And when I was going to give you the latest, I needed to go back and fill in prices that I haven't done for a while so I could get an accurate reflection. At this point, I'm not trying to compare it to Yield-Max. I'll probably do that because later I'm going to have a Yield-Max out and Defiance. I'm waiting on those. But let's jump in here and take a look at what all they've been doing. The only fund they've added since I was covering them is this KQQQ, which is kind of a tech titans is what they call it. So it's basic. I didn't look at exactly which companies there are. So I've gone back and I track all the data for the dividends. And obviously, they started back in November on all these funds except for the Tech Titans, which had an inception date of July 23rd of 2024. So what I thought I would do is not include the November and December distributions. I could have done year to year and included December, but what I did was I figured I'll just work off 2024. So I'm using, if you bought on this date, you would have gotten the dividend, right? So it's really an 11-month play here. So you can figure out your own date and compare it to Yield-Max or compare it to anything for that matter. Like I said, the yields are good. They're not as great sometimes as what Yield-Max does, but you also don't have the big losers. Their Google and their Tesla has done, or their Tesla and their Google, which they have different names. They have TSLP and Goop, right? But there's some other ones like MSFY. They got that name before. So they didn't follow Yield-Max. In some ways, they were ahead of Yield-Max. They're just a smaller fund, and they didn't go as crazy as Yield-Max and have the breadth of offering. So I really like Howard. I really like the fund. And let's get into the data. So for November, obviously you want the price of 11.19, just like Roundhill on the weeklies. Again, these are monthlies, and just like Yield-Max later, and just like Defiance, where they have some new weeklies, but they also have some monthlies, these guys are declaring. So on their Tesla fund, they had a distribution for November of 59.35. And if I remember Tesla's last distribution, it was similar. Again, the dates are going to vary, but I really need to do a comparison because my gut tells me that these guys are going to greatly outperform the high flyers that get hurt and penalized that Yield-Max does. Example would be Tesla. Today, Tesla, even if you've owned it and collected, 20 distributions over a long time, you're not really up much at all, right? When you consider the NAV and the reverse split. Whereas in this fund, we can take this 59 cents and here's your current yield based on the current price, all right? And then their price since, I use January, right, 22, because that's when they paid, I think, on the 25th, right? They paid 2 days later. So they declared on January 22, and then I think they paid on the 24th. I'd have to go back on the calendar, but you guys can look it up as well. Yeah, 22 they would have paid on the 24th. Um, so what we have is simply a better stable fund in some of the high. I've always been frustrated with the Tesla. I love Tesla, hate Tesla because it just can't get its act together. And I don't know. I'll look and see where they've come on the spreads, but um, it was just massively different in these funds. And the reason is they go out a month, so they have more time to capture. And as Howard said, they only have to be right once a month because they only made one option bet on a monthly basis as opposed to Yilmax doing weeklies, right? And we'll see if the spreads change it. I don't suspect. And Howard's free with Neos. They can do spreads. They can do any kind of option. So they didn't have to then go convert and say, oh, we want to do any kind of option. I don't know what they're doing, and I probably should have another interview with Howard. But what we're looking at here is a total return of 42.03, and I annualized that. So let's take a look. So if you receive $5.65 over the 11 payments, right? The January through December payments, and you had a distribution yield of 23.23. Well, when you multiply that times 1.1 to annualize it, because that only covers 330 days of the 365 days, then you're in a situation where what was your NAV gain or loss? Well, you've gained $3.65 since the time you bought the fund, right? And the current price is 28.01 on 11/19, and it was 24.36. So there's your $3, right? Which is 20, or sorry, that your NAV is 14.98. And when you do the 1.1, because that's only 11 months, it goes up a little bit. So you're doing it, if you add 23 and 14, you're going to get with these, the numbers to the right of the decimal, you're going to get 37, 38%. And when you do a 1.1, right, which is what I did using this, I didn't even do the full 1.106 to be even more accurate. So not a bad total return anytime you're getting a 40% yield. Your problem, if you go look at Tesla, you've gotten paid a ton of money, right? But your NAV has really been killing you on that. It's a $12, $13 stock, and your NAV was $20. So you don't have that kind of a loss here, even when you go back. They've only been around since November, but I just used the January. All right, Netflix, right? I think Yilmax is doing pretty good with Netflix. But here's a case of where we've got a 20. What did they pay, guys? So in November, they paid $1.02. Here's our November, right? I should highlight these in yellow. Yeah. Here's your yellow look. Whoops. Okay. So we know what we're looking at. So our yield jumps to 34%, right, on $1.02. Um, and they, in a total return, would be the winner by far, 56.91. So nice return. Again, the purpose of, to me, for Kurv is a more conservative, active management from Neos, and they do a very good job with the fund. So this is more like a guarantee. Of course, there are no guarantees. If the underlying completely crashes, you're going to lose in any fund, right? But these guys do manage their NAV much tighter by not being as aggressive on the yields. Um, but they're not bad. I mean, you got a 34% yield, right? So here's a more conservative Apple. Nobody gets paid a lot with Apple. And look at their total return. Classic, right? They got a NAV is 0.56, right? You only had 0.15. So that gets to 0.56, the actual gain. Here's the percentage in your yield, the same thing. So you're at 12. Goop, Google has a 21.1. That'd be interesting to compare nowadays. What I should do is go do just an 11-month, so you're looking the exact same period of time and see that's a more fair apples to apples. Here's Microsoft again. Apple and Microsoft don't typically look at this. You've actually lost some on their Microsoft, right? A $1.61 loss when you look at what the value is now at 25.64 versus what it was at 26.18. Amazon has a nice yield. So to me, the three guys that stand out here, I would say even these two. You can do very well if you average 20% on your money in a year. This guy has a very small, right? Sample size only goes back 3 or 4 payments. Um, I wasn't impressed. I don't know which funds, but I'm sure it's not that far off from the Mag 7. I think it's 20 or 30 companies in their tech titans. All right, guys, so that's what I got for you in Kurv. And I'll keep doing this on a monthly basis. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed it again. This is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. It's for fun and entertainment. All right, guys, bye for now.